Global climate change and poverty are very closely linked. Climate change is going to exacerbate the conditions of people living in poverty. The impacts of climate change are many, and they include severe changes in weather events such as floods, droughts, sea level rise. For example, take a farmer in Ethiopia, Mustafa. He's dependent on agriculture, and he's dependent on those crops for his food and for his family. In Ethiopia, you've had regular droughts, more frequent, more severe. Farmers haven't been able to grow crops, and that's pushed them into famine. And him and his family, along with many other families, are being pushed further into poverty. Often we hear the term climate change, we hear the term global warming. Global warming refers to, a warming in the average temperature of the Earth. But that leads to climate change, which is not only a warming, but it means just changes in the climate in general. So it could also mean just unusual weather patterns. It could mean certain places will actually get colder than they have been. People living in poverty are very dependent for their livelihood on natural resources. In Peru, in the district of Huancavelica, there are many farmers who raise alpacas, which is a type of animal there. And lately, it's been much colder there than it has been normally. And so that means that with the snow and with the cold temperatures, the pastures are frozen. There's nothing for the animals to graze on, and the people that are these alpaqueros that are dependent upon selling these animals, they're left without anything. They don't have a resource. And again, the farmers that plant their crops in that area, they're out of luck too. People living in poverty are very dependent upon the land and the resources, and climate change causes a lot of instability and unpredictability. And so it's very difficult then for people to do the regular things they do, to know when to plant the crops. Things like access to water, with glaciers melting, that's also an issue. Just to have water in order for basic needs is a serious issue. We're very excited about a new campaign that the Catholic Coalition on Climate Change, which is a partnership of many Catholic organizations, including the USCCB and CRS. We're going to be launching it on Earth Day, on April 22nd. And this is going to provide an excellent way that Catholics can respond to climate change. It's going to ask Catholics to do 5 things: to take a pledge to pray, to look at how does the Catholic faith call us to care for the environment and care for creation, to learn more about it, to learn more about, how are the most vulnerable, how are people living in poverty most vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, to assess how do our actions contribute to climate change. How does our use of energy, how often we drive our car, various things, how do these consumption patterns contribute to climate change? And then how can we take action to change some of these behaviors to have a positive impact? And also, the final piece of this pledge is on advocacy, and that's a very important piece to us as well, and a way for people to get involved. Right now is a very important time where we're looking at how the administration and Congress is now going to shape climate legislation. You can play a role in contacting your members of Congress, letting them know your concern for how poor people will be impacted by climate change and how you'd like to see provisions within this legislation be included to help poor people cope with and adapt to these changes, and to help them ease the effects of climate change, by having the right kinds of technology so that they can limit their emissions as well. The bishops came out with a statement on climate change in 2001. And in that statement, they talk about prudence and that we don't need to know every single detail about climate change and exactly how severe the effects are going to be, to know that we need to take action now, that to know that the ramifications of inaction are going to be even more severe, and that we have a moral obligation to people and to future generations to address this problem. Prudence is one, and the common good, that in looking at the issue of climate change, it really is a matter of the common good. We're called to look beyond just ourselves and our own desires and to look at how climate change impacts everyone around the world, and particularly the most vulnerable, who are people living in poverty.